Hi, Senator Malcolm Roberts, and I'm coming from Townsville. And I'm coming from a pretty precarious setup with my laptop. So I've got it on just a narrow base, about so big, and so I'm going to have to be very careful not to touch my laptop. This is the only area we can use it at the moment. I don't want to do it in the hotel lobby. So anyway, welcome to the live stream on Friday. I want to bring you up to date with a few things. I've made some notes before I came up, just so that I wouldn't have to prepare up here. We've just come from a place halfway between Charters Towers and Townsville, listening to a man who will be promoting in the near future. Wonderful project he's got going. He's all self-funded. He's actually got permission. He's got approval for his project, but he's getting squashed by people with political contacts in the established parties. So, g'day Multiman 40, g'day Groofer. First of all, Cairns last Saturday. What a wonderful evening it was. The energy in the room was just fantastic. So many proud Australians, so many patriots, so many people concerned about our country and wanting to support the reclamation of our country, restoring our country. And I want to thank everyone in Cairns. There were just under 200 people there, and your energy, your questions are fantastic. So thank you so much today. I'm in Townsville, as I said, because of the Anzac Day dawn service yesterday morning. And what a great day it was, mixing with people. Hey, you should see the Anzac Day parade on the Strand here in Townsville. It is just amazing. It is so big. There's so much community involvement. It really is. The energy in the whole of the Strand was just wonderful to be part of. Veterans and the Vietnam veterans first. So they've long been neglected. Kids, lots of different Army, Navy, Air Force brigades, platoons, whatever you call them, and of many different kinds. So it was just a wonderful environment. And I want to compliment the RSL for running the dawn service as well, because they, in most places, what they do is they welcome people and then they say, let's have and this is not only the introduction to the show, to the dawn service, but also the laying of the wreaths. They invite the senators first, then the members of the House of Representatives. And what Townsville did was really fantastic. They invited returned servicemen and agencies associated, not agencies, but associations associated with returned servicemen and active servicemen to go first. And that's the way it should be. So it's to commemorate the battle of at Gallipoli, but also the birthplace of Australia in many ways, and a union with New Zealand. And it was it's just so good. Since about 2013, I've noticed the number of young people coming, and that's been really gratifying, because it really is about our country. It's almost the national day now. It's certainly a reminder of what we're all about. So I want to thank the RSL Club and also the Council of Townsville did a marvellous job of supporting the RSL. I enjoyed the RSL gunfire breakfast and also the lunch put on by the RSL, and just such a wonderfully inclusive. There's that word, inclusive, but true inclusiveness. No fake inclusiveness here, but it was a wonderful environment. It was good to be at the RSL. There were two disappointments, had nothing to do with the RSL. The first one was Anthony Albanese and what he did. And I was told this by another member of Parliament, and I was at the RSL when Anthony Albanese arrived. He came in, went to the bar, bought a round of drinks, 2 flips of 2-up, and then left. That's it. Townsville is arguably one of the most important cities for our Defence Forces, and that was him contributing. He wanted a photo opportunity, and he told people before he came, according to the Member of Parliament who told me this, that he wanted to be seen at a 2-up game. That is treating Australians with enormous disrespect. And Stephen Miles, and one of his ministers during the week came up here, two executive jets, leaving Brisbane 15 minutes apart, came up here and promised a helicopter for Cairns. As I've discussed in the past, promising technology, promising assets will just enable the police to catch criminals quicker and just deliver the kids straight back into the screwed up system that we have at the moment that is being treated as a joke. That is not the way to fix crime. That is a way to perpetuate crime because they're not addressing the core issue, which I'm happy to go into in another day. But that is, we worked out that he had about an hour and a half on the ground, maybe 2 hours at most, on the ground in Townsville at the airport. Then 20 minutes to get into the city and 20 minutes to leave to get back to the airport after his media release. So he had at most 40 minutes. And it was all about putting on a show to look good, not do good. Not about listening. It was not about listening. It was not about finding out the issues. It was not about reassuring people about the problems. It was about looking good, not doing good. And the Uni Party, the Liberal Labor Uni Party, is always doing that, not addressing the core issues. And in fact, they're ignoring the fact that they're causing the core issues. We've got to stop this. Wasting taxpayer money, 2 executive jets flying the minister and the Premier up in separate jets for 40 minutes at most and not even engaging with the people. That's not government. Good government. The previous week I went to Bribie Island, regional bank closures inquiry, and I must say I met up with Susie and Jack Stride at the licensed post office. And Susie was just gave amazing testimony to the bank closures inquiry, which is now wrapping up. And I want to thank the senators involved for doing a very good job around the country. Matt Canavan and Jared Rennick in particular, and also Richard Colbeck for organising that with their secretariat and for really listening to people sincerely, because the banks are trying to shut down the use of cash. They're trying to shut down bank branches, not only in the country, in regional areas, but also in the cities and the suburbs, and also limit the use of cash and eventually wipe out cash. So thank you to all the many, many diverse people who contributed as with submissions and with outstanding evidence in testimonies before Senate inquiries as part of the inquiry into regional bank closures. And as I said, everyday people doing one hell of a job. And I want to commend Robbie Barwick and the Citizens Party of Australia, because they really supported the inquiry, came with good witnesses. We had something like, I'm guessing now, 70 people sitting in a packed room on Bribie Island. It was wonderful. The next day, or sometime, I can't remember, the days seem to fly so fast. I think it was the next day, went back to the Sunshine Coast. We met with 3 groups, all active citizens. And this is what's needed to restore democracy in our country. First people we met were at the sports grounds at Kawana. They're really trying to protect the local rugby league and other sports who use the facilities there that the Queensland government wants to knock aside and move them around to other parts of the Sunshine Coast. Sunshine Coast Rugby League headquarters, the home of rugby league on the Sunshine Coast, is Kawana. And these citizens didn't just bitch and moan and complain. They came up with an understanding of what the Olympics needs and what the community needs. They've got a perfectly good solution that they're trying to put to the state government as an alternative that will help all the sports that are getting shuffled around potentially. So I want to thank them for coming up with a positive solution. I just hope the government listens, because they don't seem to be at the moment. Then we went to another group on the northern part of the Sunshine Coast. They're bringing the state government. I won't go into the details, but the state government has removed flaps that allow salt water to go into drains that were established 100 years ago, and now they're flooding the farms with salt water. So they're destroying good cropland, and you know why they're doing it? They're doing it to comply with, now let me see if I can get the names right, Carbon Heart and Carbon Blue. They want to flood the joint with salt water, productive farmland with salt water, and they want to stimulate the growth of mangroves so that they can absorb carbon dioxide. We have got crops growing there every year, and crops that are annual crops sequester far more carbon dioxide than a tree. That's fact. So the Sunshine Coast Council, Sunshine Coast Council is actually going backwards. This is what the federal government and state governments are doing in promoting these carbon dioxide sequestration schemes. They're going backwards. That's if you believe the lie in the first place that carbon dioxide from human activity has to be sequestered away, and it's dangerous and damaging. I've discussed that it isn't. It's actually a blessing. But what they're doing is they're destroying a community, destroying productive agricultural land in the name of the council getting something like $38 million. It's a lie. And then we met with a group of 4 concerned citizens at Doonan. What a lovely facility, the Doonan pub. But very, very sociable community atmosphere. And they told us about some of their issues, and we had most of them covered. We're working on most of them. Before I go any further, I want to remind people of the National Day of Protest that One Nation is organising against the digital identity for Sunday, May the 5th, in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth, all the mainland state capitals. It's very, very important that we get a massive turnout. The petition we raised, we started, got 60,000 signatures within the first 48 hours, 2 days. So the people are very, very upset with this digital ID that the Liberals introduced into Parliament under Scott Morrison, and that the Labor Party has introduced as ultimate legislation. And Peter Dutton, to my absolute disgust, has come out in support of the misinformation, disinformation censorship bill that Liberals introduced into Parliament, and that Labor is now introducing the legislation. So they're on a unity ticket, the Liberal Party and Labor Party, identical policies. And I'll get into more of that once I talk a bit more about the day of protest. Speakers in Brisbane, I don't know if the venue's finally decided yet, but One Nation has been having difficulty getting police permission, city council permission in some of the cities around Australia. But the speakers already arranged for Brisbane include Professor James Allen, a wonderful, wonderful lawyer, an expert on many aspects of the law. George Christensen, remember George? George, fearless when it comes to defending freedoms. John Humphreys from the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, and also a Libertarian from the Libertarian Party. Daisy Cousins, myself, and a couple more who we'll be naming soon. And Kate McCullum from up at Kenilworth General Store, and she's doing amazing work. I keep hearing from people around the country. Yes, Book of Relief, social credit score, everyone. That's exactly what this is about, the digital identity, and the other bills I'll talk about in a minute. But Katie McCullum is going around educating people all around the state and how to stand up and protect property rights and protect land, valuable agricultural land, productive land, and also to protect rainforests and a natural environment. So Kate is going to be the MC. She's a live wire. So come along in Brisbane and listen to Kate and the other speakers. And in Brisbane, we have something very, very special. We have the Emily James Trio coming down from Atherton up in Queensland, and also 2 of their members are coming up from Victoria. But they'll be performing live a few of their top songs. The Emily James Trio, come along and listen to them. They're wonderful people, wonderful music, very Australian, and a lot of heart and soul in their music. And I want to also mention that that in Mackay, the local group, I've forgotten the name of the group, is organising a protest, same time, 11 a.m. at Blue Water Quays, a digital identity, anti-digital identity protest. Steve Andrew will be there, the One Nation Member of Parliament for Queensland Parliament, and Christine Keys, Teen Keys, as some people know her, and other speakers all being arranged. And Cairns, Gina Court told me that a number of people in Cairns are organising a protest in Cairns. I don't know the venue yet, but it's at 10 a.m. It's the only one not at 11. It's at 10 a.m. G'day, Dawn, Shannon. So that should be a very good day around the country. It's very, very important we get a good turnout so that the people have their say and tell the Lib Lab Uni Party to go to hell on this. They're uniting to shut down Australians through controlling our activities through the digital identity. Putting a number plate on us all. That's what they're doing or trying to do. And we've got them scared because the people revolted when it was passed through the Senate. It has to go back to the House of Representatives, and it seems to be not on the list for the next session of Parliament. So really ram home the disgust with which people are treating this digital identity bill. Now, the digital identity is a uni-party introduction. As I said, the Liberals introduced it, and Labor's putting it in the bill. On its own, it's very, very powerful and destructive of democracy. Combined with other bills and legislation that are either in place already or have been introduced into the Parliament but not introduced as legislation, and that flags coming legislation, it will be terrible. It'll give the government very powerful control over us all. So it's not just the digital identity bill that's terrible, it's the combination of digital identity bill with the other bills, including the identity verification. That was introduced by Labor Party, but it was started with the Liberals introducing the discussion papers for identity verification. It's about biometric data, including facial recognition, that's able to identify you anywhere in the country. Traffic lights, going through an intersection, who you've got as a passenger, who you're associating with, supermarkets. So that will tag the digital identity bill database around you with your biometric identification. Then, of course, the digital identity bill, which I've talked at length about many times. One Nation is completely opposed to these, completely opposed. We're the only ones to be opposed to it, opposed to all these bills. The Liberal National Party introduced the digital identity bill concept and draft legislation under Scott Morrison. Misinformation, disinformation bill. This is a censorship bill. This is where the government and the mainstream media, the mouthpiece misery media, the globalist media, the Big Brother media, they will be exempt from censorship. Other politicians, every citizen, and other parties and social media will not be exempt. And they have the arbitrary right to determine whether or not what you're saying is misinformation, unintentionally causing harm, or disinformation, deliberately causing harm. Severe penalties. So you combine that with the identity verification, the biometric data, facial recognition, digital identity, all your data, your health data, your health records, financial transactions, your location, what you say on social media, financial transactions. That's where everything is combined and connected eventually with private companies that can buy the data and combine their databases on you into that folded all together. That's what is coming if we don't protest. The National Payments Platform, the new payments platform, the LNP oversaw the development of that, which was done by the Reserve Bank of Australia. Every financial transaction, every electronic financial transaction in the country goes through this one node. They all go through that, and that is logged, and so they have everything you've bought electronically on that log. Everything. So, and then we've seen that the Reserve Bank of Australia has admitted that they are working on a digital currency. So then they'll be able to track your meat consumption, your petrol use, and it'll be programmed to expire if you don't use it And so that'll eliminate savings. Then they've got control over you because you're vulnerable. Without savings, we can be controlled. So someone said here, hi, Aaron, I missed that comment, coming thick and fast. So Aaron asks, will yourself and Craig Kelly be in Brisbane on the 5th? I'll be in Brisbane on the 5th. Pauline and Craig will be in Sydney on the 5th. So they're still organising the actual venue in Sydney, and we're still to get final approval from the police, from the City Council for the Brisbane venue. But it's coming together around the country. So the negative news is that the Liberal National Party and the Labor Party have combined for this authoritarian foundation to a future totalitarian Australia, in which they will be able to control you. The good news is that the people have started to really awaken and shown their disgust at these developments with the Liberal National and Labor Uniparty. Both the Liberal Nationals and the Labor Party policies are almost identical. They're conspiring together on these controls over people. So the good news is that people are starting to awaken. And the only way they've been able to get away with what they've been doing in the past, implementing UN and World Economic Forum policies, is because Liberal and Labor have conspired and the people have been asleep. People are starting to awaken thanks to COVID, and now thanks to the Digital Identity Bill, people are starting to really be upset. Yeah, Paul Revere, I agree. The duopoly was always combined. Dan, yes, we know they're just one, but we've got to stop voting as though they're different, because that's what happens before elections. The mouthpiece media, the misery media, the Big Brother media comes out and says, vote Liberal, vote Labor, vote Liberal, vote Labor. And then they usually work out campaigns that are lies, like a vote for One Nation is a vote. The Liberal Party says a vote for One Nation is a vote for Labor. And the Labor Party says a vote for One Nation is a vote for Liberals. Just trying to get more of their own members and supporters to not vote One Nation. But if you put One Nation one, then you can put all the others as you want. You can put Liberal ahead of Labor. And if if our candidate does not get up, then your vote can make sure your vote doesn't go to the one you prefer less. It's the biggest Ponzi scheme. All billionaires are involved. I don't know about all of them. There's some decent billionaires. And the cryptocurrency will all bankrupt. Thank you, Baron von Jones. Resist, defy, do not comply. Yes, exactly. The Great Reset, the World Economic Forum is pushing. We have pushed from the start the Great Resist. So resist, turn up at the protest, make your voice heard. And also go and visit your federal member of parliament, your federal senators, and visit them in their offices. Tell them you don't want this. They're there to represent you. You pay their wages. They're there to be your voice. Vote for what you want. Call them, telephone them. Be polite but be firm, and also write paper-based letters. Another piece of good news. The COVID inquiry into drafting terms of reference for a possible future Royal Commission has delivered its report. And I want to compliment the secretariat of that committee, the public servants who support the inquiry and collate everything, go through all the submissions, collect notes and do the transcripts at the hearings where witnesses give their testimony personally. I want to thank the Secretariat, and I want to thank the Chair, Paul Scarr. Now, Paul did a phenomenal job of pulling together a mountain of information along with the Secretariat, and the report is out. The report has been approved by the committee. The Chair drafts the report, and then it's voted on by a majority of 4-2. The Terms of Reference Inquiry report has been approved. So next step, it'll go to the Senate. The Labor Party put in a dissenting report. They don't want a Royal Commission. Still, even though they promised in the lead up to the election, as part of their election promises, they promised that they would get a Royal Commission up. Well, they're now opposing that. The Greens supported us, and I want to thank David Shoebridge and the Greens for their support for the Royal Commission Terms of Reference. So there were 4 recommendations. Very, very simple report. A phenomenal report with lots of details in 3 chapters, and then the 4th chapter is basically half a page, the 4 recommendations. The first recommendation, overwhelmingly, every witness who testified and almost every submission calling for and supporting a royal commission. Not just wanting it, but very, very strongly endorsing it. So I want to thank all of those people. And thank every witness and every submitter for contributing to the Terms of Reference Royal Commission. That was a motion that I introduced into the Senate and went through the Senate successfully. So I want to thank all the senators that voted for that. But anyway, we've now got an overwhelming recommendation, very strong recommendation for a comprehensive Royal Commission, and we'll be urging the government to adopt that. The second recommendation is that for a Royal Commission to be most successful, it needs the states to be actively involved. And so the second recommendation from the inquiry was that the states pass complementary legislation so they all endorse the Royal Commission and take part in it fully. We have got to have the truth come out. The third recommendation is to adopt the draft terms of reference for a future Royal Commission. Adopt the draft terms of reference. We're calling on the committee is calling on the government to adopt the draft terms of reference as the terms of reference for a Royal Commission. And the fourth and final recommendation, it's wonderful to see this, that the draft terms of reference be submitted to the public for public scrutiny and comment and feedback so that they become the people's terms of reference, so that people can comment on those terms of reference. I encourage everyone to read it. If you go to the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee and go to past reports on the website, go to Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee of the Senate and go to past inquiries, you'll see the COVID-19 inquiry, I think it's called, COVID-19 inquiry, terms of reference. If you put in COVID-19 terms of reference inquiry, final report, you'll get it. But it is a really comprehensive report, as I said, very accurate of what happened during the during the COVID mismanagement and deceit. Okay, let's take questions. I finished in half an hour this time, so I'm happy to take questions. I don't know that there's anyone in the office at the moment. I'm up in Townsville. I've got one member of staff taking another one to the airport. So normally they just take questions. Frank says, "Are One Nation currently running at 9% of people's choice?" Running above that, the latest poll, YouGov poll, I think it is, it says has One Nation at 10%. Now, that is highly significant. 10% would not enable us to win government, of course, but 10% means we would have a senator in every state. And because the Senate is run in proportional representation and from each state, and that would give us a number of voices. If we had it, we almost got a senator up in Western Australia last time, almost got one up in South Australia, almost got one up in Victoria. If we had 3 senators, plus Pauline and myself, that would be 5. More importantly, it would reduce the Labor Party, potentially the Greens, and potentially the socialist crossbench, people like David Pocock, people like Jackie Lambie, from being in there. At the moment, the Senate let's look at the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is a majority Labor because there are 6 Teals suppressing the Liberal MPs, the number of Liberal MPs. So the Labor Party controls the lower house, it forms the government. It needs to get things through the Senate. What we're seeing is the government in the Senate is currently a coalition of Greens, Teal, David Pocock. David Pocock's a Teal, gets funding from his Climate 200, pushing a globalist agenda, and the Labor Party. David Pocock, Teal, Greens and Labor. They're pushing through and suppressing debate, suppressing us being able to get information out of the government. They're suppressing democracy in this country. Those 3 groups. So if we had fewer of them and 3 more One Nation senators, then we would have the balance of power, and we would be able to restrict people, the government, from doing what it's doing. What is it doing? Passing laws with no debate, stopping motions from other senators who are wanting to get information from the government, orders for production of documents, for example. They're working now, thanks to David Pocock and the Greens and the Labor Party combining. They're working without scrutiny. And what happens is that we still have some power, but it's more personal power and political power than procedural power in the Senate, because we push issues such as the draft terms of reference inquiry and others. We're stopping the cash ban bill, for example, opposing the digital identity bill, putting pressure on the government to put the misinformation, disinformation bill aside, etc. So we still have a lot of clout, but our clout comes not from a majority in the Senate, but from personal connection with the people of Australia, and using their political strength to leverage the Labor Party and the Liberal Party into backing down on things. That's illegal, passing fake laws behind closed doors. Why aren't they held accountable? Well, we are holding them accountable. I've just held them accountable then by exposing the fact that they are suppressing debate, silencing debate, guillotining bills, no debate whatsoever. And now we need the people of Australia to stand up and take their rightful senior position above the Parliament in this country and hold the politicians accountable. That's what the people need to do. A democracy requires a strong citizenship to hold the politicians accountable. Yes, Aid Larson. In 1912, Aid says, J.P. Morgan said, quote, "The only real money is gold, everything else is debt." Correct. Everything else is fiat currency. So we need to get back to solid backing. Senator, what is the latest regarding the WHO Treaty, the United Nations World Health Organization Treaty? Well, it's exactly as two key staff in my office have been saying all along. We were the first to go public on this back in 2022, the first, and our videos went around the world, woke people up. The Africans rebelled and said, screw you to the United Nations, because the people in Africa have been suppressed. They've been treated as guinea pigs. They've been murdered by the thousands by the UN World Health Organization and Big Pharma. So they said no. That shook the United Nations up. But we pointed out their draft international health regulations, and revised international health regulations, and the pandemic treaty were elements of control. The United Nations, if they were passed, would just walk into a country and take over the health department of that country, the health system of that country. All kinds of horrific anti-human restrictions and controls. Bit by bit, people around the world have woken up, and other members of Parliament have followed what we have done, and they have been waking up, and they've woken people up. And my office became the first to talk about two things. First of all, the fact that the United Nations World Health Organization needs to base this on consensus. It has not a simple majority, but on consensus. They couldn't get consensus, so we were right there. And we then saw the scaling back of the international health regulations and the scaling back of the pandemic treaty controls and powers. And then we saw, and again, two people in my office went and had a look at the United Nations World Health Organization Constitution and found out that the Constitution requires 4 months' notice before a vote is called on international health regulations and pandemic treaty. And it was 2 months to go. So they can't possibly move it unless they break their own constitution. But regardless, it's been watered right back so that there are hardly any changes compared with the 2007 international health regulations. So it's not as big a threat. But it's very, very important to not let up, because the United Nations has shown repeatedly, the World Economic Forum has shown repeatedly, that they're capable of horrific lies, anti-human lies, and just changing things very, very quickly, ignoring their own rules. So it's very, very important to keep up the pressure, and many people have joined us in keeping up the pressure on the politicians in the Lib Lab Uni Party. Tell them you don't want the World Health Organization treaties. So it's very, very important to keep that pressure up. The politicians are starting to take notice of it. So even if the UN does something dodgy and gets it into each parliament, the parliament can still say no. They can't go anywhere without the parliament saying yes. So that's really important to understand. Will vaping become regulated for us ex-smokers like tobacco and alcohol? That's what we're trying to do. There's a very powerful group known as that's part of the Quit Smoking campaign. Now this sounds a bit strange, but they get $500 million from the government. If the reduction of smoking is big, they'll be out of a job. So they want to keep their little lobby groups going, government funded, and they are opposing vaping. Now vaping, wherever it's done properly and regulated, is safe. It's far safer and less dangerous to health than smoking. It also leads to a very much quicker reduction in smoking. Australia's level of smoking fell dramatically in the past due to the cost of cigarettes increasing dramatically. Australian cigarettes are the most expensive in the world by a long, long, long way. They're making lots of money out of this, the governments. But our rate of quitting smoking has flattened and it's now stable. Everywhere else where they've got regulated vaping, people have an alternative. They quit smoking and they take up vaping, and then they eventually get off vaping as well. So we are pushing for, I'm trying to read at the same time some of the comments. So we are pushing very strongly for vaping to be regulated, and that way we would have safety in the vapes. There's nothing wrong with vaping itself. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but for smokers, if it's regulated, they will have assurance on the quality. At the moment, they're bringing in all kinds of crap from China and other places. Some are toxic. We saw some deaths in America attributed to vaping, but that was because it's unregulated and they were smoking things that were harmful to you. Carbon tax is a joke, says Rob. Carbon is needed to grow anything. You're being fooled, 100% peeps. Spot on, but it's not carbon, it's carbon dioxide. It's essential to all life on this planet. Now, Aaron, you say you disagree, vaping is worse than smoking. No, it's not. You haven't got the smoke going into people's lungs. You've just got the nicotine, the vape going into lungs. And that's why I won't do it. But if I was smoking, then if I was a smoker, then I would be taking up vaping because it still gives the nicotine hit, which is sadly what smokers are addicted to, and it enables people to wean off. Everywhere in the world where it's done properly has reduced dramatically smoking rates. Australia is not reducing. Someone here says it's the chemicals in tobacco that kills. Take the shit out and it'll be no problem. There may be some evidence for that. I heard that somewhere up until the 40s, smoking did not kill many people. But since the 40s, they started putting chemicals in it. But regardless, if you're taking smoke into your lungs, that's not good. So I think that's why I think vaping is the better of the two alternatives. It needs to be a choice. It is working wherever it is done properly. Wherever vaping is regulated, it's protected, it's done properly. It also gives revenue to the government, so it can be regulated. So I think that's very, very important. Biggle says, soon food will be a luxury item. I laugh. Yet I've been leading the charge in showing that that is exactly the case. They want to regulate what you eat, when you eat it, how much you eat. They want to regulate that you eat everything you buy and you don't get any more until you've eaten a lot. And that's why social credit systems are part of this digital identity bill ultimately. Lynette, I agree. You're saying your lungs are your life. The only thing going in there should be clean air. What are you doing to address air pollution? Well, for a start, we're telling the truth on, and air pollution is a problem, but it's much, much, much less of a problem than it was just 50 years ago, even less than it was 20 years ago. In California, for example, the level of pollutants coming out of car exhaust pipes is 1/1000th of what it was in the 70s. Air pollution, wherever it's been addressed properly, has been solved. First of all, we're addressing real pollution, not carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It's essential for all life on this planet. Let's get that straight. But Obama, thanks to Julia Gillard, who first told the lie that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. They called it carbon pollution. That is a complete lie and distortion. They show their ignorance of Mother Nature. Carbon dioxide is essential to all life on our beautiful planet. Real pollutants, like particulates, smog, small particles of combustion that comes up the chimney. Then we've got sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxides, carbon monoxide. That is a pollutant. They're now scrubbed out of most power stations, modern power stations, all scrub them out. The combustion of coal and oil and natural gas is far, far cleaner today. And what is left in the exhaust is scrubbed out. Catalytic converters take it out. So the level of pollution is much, much lower. So that's what we're doing, Lynette, about it. We're pushing to continue to reduce real pollution, but we're making sure it's not confused with carbon dioxide, which is not a pollutant. Oh, the bigger picture, what a wonderful statement you made. I quote, "Spreading the truth and calling out their lies is how we win against the Uniparty." Exactly. Well, Rob Wade says nicotine isn't addictive and shows it kills off cancers. Well, my wife recently told me about this. Now, I haven't seen the studies, so I'm not going to quote them because I don't know what they are. But my wife said that it's been shown that some people, a very small number of people, nicotine actually prevents them getting cancer. But hey, we know that smoking kills. We know that. So overall, while it might help some people, let me see if I can get new comments. Here we go. Sulfur dioxide from volcanoes is the most toxic. Well, there are many things coming out of volcanoes that are toxic, Marg. Sulfur dioxide is a real pollutant. It comes from burning high sulfur coal, which is limited. But even these days, in power stations, high sulfur coal can be burnt because they scrub out sulfur dioxide. What comes out of a chimney these days in a power station, a modern power station, is carbon dioxide, which is essential for all life on the planet, and water vapor, which is essential for all life on the planet. You can chew native tobacco, nicotine plant. I'm told you can. Some people seem to say that there might be cancer in the throat and cancer in the mouth from that. Well, it's wonderful to see lots of different views. Here's Ralph saying, "Smoke, don't vape." That's your choice to say that. We're not going to censor free speech. I want to, if I can get it here, talk about the Safety Commissioner. You've probably seen the fuss with Elon Musk, who is under threat in the courts of being censored by the E-Safety Commissioner, who's a North American who's come down here, and Malcolm Turnbull appointed her to a salary of around $450,000, I think she's on per year. I quizzed her in Senate estimates, held her accountable. She's not used to being held accountable, and she started losing the train of her thought. But here are my conclusions from a brief testimony, because this is a real issue. This is a live censorship issue right now. You might remember the tragic and horrific attack on Bishop Mari in the church last week in Sydney. Now that's a tragedy. It has been declared a terrorist attack. So I think all Australians oppose terrorism. But what they want to do, what E-Safety Commissioner, Ms. Julie Inman Grant, the North American, what she wants to do is to stop Twitter from showing that footage, the video footage of the attack. Now, it's not gory. It's not particularly what's the word? Violent as such. Well, it is violent, but it's not something that shows graphic amounts of blood and injuries coming. So it's not as drastic. What she wants to do is to ban it off X. She wants to stop X from showing that video, or stop people on X who are putting up the video. Nothing about Facebook. They can keep going. Nothing about Instagram. They can keep going. Nothing about Channel 9, the ABC, Channel 7, Channel 10, SBS from showing it repeatedly. On the night of the attack, the television news repeatedly showed the same graphic details, same graphic video. No censorship there. She's just attacking X. But anyway, I held her accountable in Senate estimates. And these are my conclusions. I wrote them down so I could be clear about them. My conclusions from her brief testimony, her answers to me. She fails to specify objective standards. So she'll impose whatever she thinks needs to be imposed. And she does it hypocritically on just one medium, X. When she lacks evidence, she applies her justice, what she determines justice, based upon what's available. So if there's no evidence, it's just done on, her decision is made on what's available. She lacks specific answers. There were many times when I was getting damn angry because she just would not answer with specifics. She wouldn't answer my questions. She hides behind buzzwords and name dropping, meeting with the heads of the EU, meeting with the World Economic Forum globalists, meeting with the tech CEOs. Nothing substance. She presumptuously decides she is effective and justifies herself. It'll be up to the Senate to determine whether or not she's effective, not her. That's very, very cheeky and arrogant, in my opinion, of her. She uses the World Economic Forum to start a global push for control of speech. That's what she's doing. She's setting up a global network to control speech. She presumes to decide what are the forces of good without mentioning specific objective standards for assessing what is good or bad. She wants to be the arbiter of what is good and what is bad. That is horrific. That's tyranny. That is totalitarianism. She spends $41,000 taxpayer money to join the parasitic World Economic Forum globalists, the European Union bureaucrats, and tech company heads. None of them have Australia interests at heart. None of them. They're trying to destroy our country, control Australians. So we say, what the hell is she doing being funded to go to the World Economic Forum, taxpayers funding her, to put in place, when she's there, she's forming a global network to control free speech, to stop free speech. You can't control free speech. You're stopping free speech if you attempt to control it. I see nothing says, let the people decide what is good and what is bad. I agree entirely. People are mature enough to understand what they want to see and what they don't want to see. People these days can switch off a platform. They can jump off Facebook. They can stop Facebook. They can also stay on Facebook and block individual comment or people that are commenting on their page. They can already block. The best person to censor what you want to see is you. I mean, if you don't like what I'm saying, click me off. So that's what you need to do as people of Australia. We need to trust Australian citizens to make the decision. There's only one exception. And that's paedophilia and child sexual abuse. That needs to stop. That does need to be censored. That's just about it. You know, Julie Inman Grant, the E-Safety Commissar, I don't know if she doesn't watch social media or if she doesn't watch TV, but how many times have you seen videos of planes flying into the World Trade Towers? How many times? That's a horrific terrorist attack that claimed reportedly 3,000 plus lives. Still allowing that to happen. Not a word. So she wants to select. This looks like a vendetta on X. She used to be, as I understand it, a former employee of Twitter when it was under the woke leadership. And now Elon Musk is standing up saying he won't censor, and she's trying to force him to censor. Hypocrisy, letting the other platforms get away with it. Ali G says, how can they give that job to a foreigner in the first place? Exactly. Senator I See Nothing says, Senator, your weekly roundups need to be 90 minutes. Well, sometimes they do end up going for 90 minutes, but I've got a number of things on in here in Townsville. We're preparing for a forum tonight at the West End pub. So come along. We've got 125 people registered, which is quite a crowd for Townsville. That's fantastic. So come along. I'll be presenting on digital identity. I'll be presenting on crime policy, housing policy, immigration policy, energy policy, and there's one other, health policy, touching on various others, and above all, answering Q&A. And after the Q&A, being available for people to have one-on-ones with me. So just like we did in Cairns, it was a wonderful evening in Cairns. I really enjoyed it. I love mixing with the people and being held accountable or getting people airing their suggestions. Boy, they're going quickly and fast. Malcolm, are you a member of Agenda 2030? Definitely not. In my first speech in the Senate, I called on Australia, this is back in 2016, to exit the United Nations. Oz exit, I coined the term, and to exit Agenda 21, which is now Agenda 2030. I totally opposed it. Pauline first opposed. She was the first person in federal parliament back in 1996 to oppose Agenda 21. One Nation completely opposes Agenda 21. Oh, where have we got it? This is going through. Gee, you guys are going quickly here. They're targeting us from every angle. Crossy says that. You're absolutely correct. And that's what we've been trying to say to people, to wake people up. But I can't wake people up. We can only share our information, and please share my information with your friends, workmates, family. People wake up when they wake up. When they're ready for the message, they wake up. And it has to be a free choice. This is just the beginning. They're trying to stop people from communicating the truth. Remember, safe and effective. Greg, how can anyone forget safe and effective? You're exactly correct. This is just the beginning. This is the slippery slope they're trying to get us to tread onto. One Nation won't fall for it. We've been calling it out. We've been calling it out around the world. It's a global push. Senator, can the government be deregulated? Well, by definition, it's the one that proposes regulations. But it can be deregulated. All we have to do is get more people to vote One Nation, not Liberal Labor, and get more people to wake up to the fact that Liberal and Labor are two sides, two cheeks of the same arsehole. That's what Liberal and Labor are, two cheeks of the same backside. There was something else I was going to say in there. There's so many things going on here. Power to the people, exactly. So that's right, deregulate the government. You can get control of the government again. The top entity, the supreme governing body of our country is the people as a collective, the people. This is the only country in the world in which the Constitution was voted on by the people and adopted as a result of that vote. It's the only, and the only people who can change our Constitution are the people, majority of people in a majority of the states and a majority overall. So the people have the final say. The people elect the government. So when you see the Liberal-Labor Uniparty, then recognise that people have been fooled into thinking they can vote Liberal or Labor. You're voting for the same thing. And what you'll see in every election is, as I've discussed earlier this afternoon, the Labor Party saying, don't vote for One Nation. A vote for One Nation is a vote for the Liberal Party. And the Liberal Party saying, don't vote for One Nation. A vote for One Nation is a vote for the Labor Party. They're both lying. Preferences are allocated by the individual voter when you go to vote in the privacy of your electoral booth, voting booth. That's who allocates preferences. Labor and Liberal do not allocate preferences. You do. You allocate your own preferences. What happened to Ricardo Bossi? That's already... Only human asks. What happened to Ricardo Bossi? I don't know. It doesn't bother me what happened to Ricardo Bossi. It seems that it was a mistake for the ABC to be headquartered in Melbourne. You know, I did an interview on the ABC up here in Townsville today, and it was by Steve Austin in Brisbane through the ABC studios in Townsville. My experience is that ABC in Melbourne, ABC in Canberra, ABC in Sydney are terrible. Biased, left-wing bullshit artists, pushing the globalist narrative. Some of the presenters in Brisbane are similar. But the regions, now they are something totally different. And this is what we think happens. The ABC journalists in Melbourne, TV and radio I'm talking about, Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra, and to some extent Brisbane, go home from their work where they're pushing the leftist agenda, the control side agenda. They go home and they live in a control side of politics. They live in the places where the woke are. They live in the places where the Greens are. That's all they hear. They're living in an echo chamber. But when someone in Townsville, an ABC studio journalist, goes home in Townsville, goes home in Ipswich, goes home in Dalby, goes home in Charleville, they go home to the real world. And they're held accountable by their mates. And so they don't see the same narrow, restricted views. Can it be made compulsory to have access to a form showing exactly where preferences are going when we vote in all elections? Yes, it can. You can see where the preferences go after the vote, because they'll show you the vote, the primary vote, which is before preferences, and then they'll show you as each party gets knocked out in the Senate where their preferences go in broad terms. So you can see it. Yes, you can. Here's a question. Michael McIntosh, which year Constitution would you be referring to? It's only one, 1901, the original Constitution. And if you don't believe me, we keep hearing this nonsense from many, many people, but actually from a few people. It's decreasing now. People are waking up. Go and have a look at the 1901 Constitution. Then go and have a look at the Constitution as it's presented today. You'll see 8 changes, all passed by referendum. That's it. And if you can find anything else that's changed, let me know. We'd be interested to find out. Senator, have you looked at the EV, electric vehicle, non-contribution to revenue, whereas 15.1 million petrol diesel vehicle owners contribute $17 billion, whereas 50,000 electric vehicle owners contribute zilch? That's an interesting thing. Petrol excise, diesel excise, they're supposedly raised to pay for road maintenance and build roads. It's a very, very significant point. Not only are EV buyers not paying their fair share to use the roads, they're not paying for the damage that their heavy vehicles create. They're not paying for that serious damage. So we need to tax everyone for the road use, not just diesel and petrol vehicle owners. Marion, yes, it has been changed from common law to admiralty law. No, that's not true. We run under statutory law and also common law, which is the interpretation of courts of statutory law and personal claims. Excuse me. Spirit, I'm going, people asking stupid shit and nothing serious. I think there are a lot of serious things, Brendan, but it's up to you to do what you want. Every question I treat seriously. The Constitution does not enshrine a Bill of Rights. You know, there's an interesting debate about Bill of Rights. Some people say that the Bill of Rights would specify the freedoms. Well, that's correct in a sense, but you can't specify freedoms in detail. You can't cover every circumstance. And then there would be court cases as to whether or not the Bill of Rights is being complied with if we had a Bill of Rights. And the judges then, it would be their interpretation that would be the decider. And I don't think I want that. Several prominent barristers, prominent academic law professors are totally opposed to the Bill of Rights in this country. We have our freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. What we don't have enshrined is the people holding politicians accountable. Scott Morrison, the Labor premiers, Premier Berejiklian, they violated the basic freedoms that are implicit in our Constitution and implicit in case law. We don't need a Bill of Rights. We just need enforcement by the politicians, and that means the people holding politicians more accountable. 1688. Good to hear a public servant taking his role seriously. All questions must be taken seriously. Thank you, Kang Kong. Look, the people of Australia pay my salary. I am here to serve the people of Australia. I've made my point in the Senate. Until fairly recently, I've started every speech with the words, as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, or as a servant to the people of Queensland. So every speech. Nowadays, I don't do it because the people have, in Parliament, I understand my position quite clearly. You know, when I first raised that point, I started my first speech in the Senate with those words, as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia. Senators on the Labor side laughed, some. Senators on the Liberal side sniggered, some. They don't anymore. So thank you. And someone just said, I missed the name, and you're worth every dime. Thank you. Do you get funding from... Oh, I missed that one. Jane says, yes, but Malcolm, you're registered and not sworn in by the 1900 Constitution, are you not? No, I swore an oath in accordance with the wording of the 1901 Constitution. End of story. We're going to be putting up material on this because there's a lot of misinformation going on. And we don't want misinformation to be banned. We want misinformation to be released so that we can confront it. We've had a very, very long document given to us by a man who studied the Constitution and studied the law and the legal system in this country for some time. And our staff, including a barrister and a law graduate, have seen the document and they are very, very impressed. We're going to be taking bits. That person gave us that document because he's sick and tired of people misrepresenting the Constitution, misrepresenting law, misrepresenting rights, and we're going to be taking things out of that and posting it on my website, addressing some of the misrepresentations that are going on about the legal system. The truth will prevail, Aaron, exactly. And that's why it should be left to us to decide, not me as a politician, not me as a One Nation member. It should be up to us, the people, everyone watching, everyone in the country, to decide what is the truth. That's the best way. I was on an interview with Alexandra Marshall immediately before this live stream, and she points out that when people are attacked, for example, the Lindt Cafe, she happened to be in Sydney at the time, there was gossip flying around the city, people wanting to know what's happening. That is a natural consequence of something terrible that we hear. People go and talk to each other, they listen to each other, they natter to each other. Some of it is going to be confusing, some of it is going to be mistakes, some of it's going to be false, some of it's going to be wrong. But what they're trying to do is piece it together, because when you're threatened, that's what we need to do. We need to sort out the truth. And the best way to sort out truth is not to give it to Julie Inman-Grant, the East Safety Commissar, not to give it to Anthony Albanese, not to give it to Peter Dutton, not to make it the responsibility of any single person, but to let the people talk about it freely. I'm not afraid of someone calling me names. I'm not afraid of people telling lies about me. They'll soon be found out. So it's the best way is to let people share information, even misinformation, because as the people of Australia, are the best to determine whether or not something is true. And it emerges by people talking about it through their millions, through their communities, through families. That's how truth emerges. Yes, all bills must be put to the pub test. This is ads saying again, all bills must be put to the pub test before they sign us out of the decisions. I agree. That's why Pauline and I support a citizens-initiated referendum. This will probably be my last question. No, Albo opposes his memes. We need to ramp up the memes. Well, that's clever. Citizens-initiated referendum is where you get a petition signed by a certain percentage of the citizens of the country, and more Albo memes. A certain percentage of the citizens of the country, and once that threshold is reached, then a law that's been passed by Parliament is put to the vote, and the people can dismiss it and repeal it and get rid of it. Or they can hold a member of Parliament accountable and get rid of that member of Parliament. So that's exactly what we need. You know, I had my mother and father had a friend in their 60s. This is some years ago, probably 40 years ago. Yeah, it would have been about 40 years ago. And she was in her 60s, and she went to Switzerland. She wasn't interested much in politics. She hardly ever talked about it. She came back from Switzerland, and I said to her, well, Auntie Betty, what did you think of Switzerland? And I was expecting her to say beautiful mountains, beautiful scenery, clean, responsible people, friendly people, everything on time, well organized. That's what I was expecting her. And I'll always remember this. Auntie Betty said what she remembers of Switzerland, what stood out most was the people, the politicians are responsible. The politicians are responsible. Why? Because they have citizens-initiated referendum and they have a central government with minimal power. Most of the power is in the cantons, which is the equivalent of our states. And so that's very, very important to understand, because it gives the people of the country the ultimate power in determining whether or not a law is appropriate, in determining whether or not a politician is allowed to continue. So I'm going to thank everyone for participating. We'll be back with you next Friday. What's on next Friday, I hope, subject to what's on the calendar. But we intend to try and do this every Friday, as you've seen. So just want everyone to remember Anzac Day yesterday and why that is so important. The significance for our country. It was the birth of our country in many, many ways. That's when we came of age. I want to thank the people of Townsville for being great hosts. I love being up here in North Queensland. So thank you very much for listening in. Have a great weekend and go the Dolphins.